We looked at three or four poems that dealt with nostalgia or sadness over people who have died and gone their way, but lived in houses, and the narrator or the poet reminisces about their past by taking us on a tour of the house. Well, this is a poem that is the polar opposite of that. It's almost funny. And whereas the other poems that we talked about made you feel a sense of sadness, mellow, kind of a mellow feeling of sadness of those people who lived in the home and no longer are there. And, it's just so different. Okay, so this poem will take us to a city house that was wrecked by maybe a wrecking ball, knocked to the ground, And I'd like you to listen to the tone of the narrator. But before we do, let me just review a couple of lines from Thomas Gray's elegy written in a country churchyard, where he is mellow, dramatic about those who are buried under the soil. And he says, let's see, the moping owl does to the moon complain of such a wandering near her secret bower, molest her ancient solitary reign. And these are the lines I want to focus on. Beneath those rugged elms that yew trees shade, where heaves the turf in many a mouldering heap, each in his narrow cell forever laid, the rude forefathers of the hamlet sleep. The breezy call of incense breathing morn, the swallow twittering from the straw-built shed, the cock's shrill clarion or the echoing horn, no more shall rouse them from their lowly bed. For then no more the blazing hearth shall burn, or busy housewife ply her evening care. No children run to lisp their sire's return, or climb his knees the envied kiss to share. Okay, so, that is over the top in terms of melodrama, all right? A tearjerker kind of thing. Now, this poem by Steven Vincent Benet is totally opposite. And it's rough. It's almost like Carl Sandburg's Chicago, City of Steel, and rugged people and hard living. So that's what we find in this poem. And if you want to start thinking about the inhabitants of those knocked down houses, forget about it. Okay, he doesn't want you to do that. So listen to the way he presents it. Do not desire to seek who once we were, or where we did, or what, or in whose name. Those buildings have been torn down. When the first wreckers tore the house open like a pack of cards and the sun came in all over everywhere, they found some old newspapers and a cork and footprints on the very dusty door, but neither mouse nor angel. Then even these went, even the little marks of shabby shoes, the one sharp impress of a naked heel. You cannot call us up and there anymore. The number's been changed. There was a card downstairs with names and such under the bell, but that's long gone. Yes, and we, they, and you, and telegrams and flowers, and the years went up and down the stairs day after day and kept the stair rail polished with our hands. But we moved on to other neighborhoods. Do not arrange that door sill with your eyes, nor try to make your hardened mind recall, oh, how old windows looked when they were lit, or who the woman was on the third floor. There's no ghosts to raise. There is the blank face of the stone, the hard line of the street, the boys crying through twilight. That's all. Go buy yourself a drink. and call about it and talk about it. Carry a humming head home through the rain, but do not wear rosemary, touch cold iron, or leave out food before you go to bed, for there's no fear of ghosts here. That boy and girl are dust, the sparrows bathing under the sun, under the virgin rock. Their bones lie sunken, past pave and conduit, in hidden waters, stifled like unborn children in the darkness, past light and speech, cable and rooted steel, under the caissons, under the foundation. Peace, peace, for these are people with whose names somewhere or elsewhere, and you must not vex strangers with words about an old address. But for those others, do not be afraid. They are beyond you. They are too deep down for steel to pierce, for engines to uncover. Not all the desperate splitters of the earth, nitro or air drill, or the chewing shovel shall ever mount them up from where they lie. All right, so I think you can see the difference in that and the other poems I read, those 4 poems on nostalgia, and then the elegy that Gray wrote about the country churchyard. All right, so let me walk you through this analysis I put together. For City Lovers by Benet differs from the other 3 or 4 selections in many ways. The most obvious difference is the poem's point of view, or tone, I should say. In the previous discussed poems, the speaker was an outsider giving the reader a description of the remains of a house long unoccupied. In each of these poems, the narrator comments on those artifacts which might have suggested a previous existence in the home, and through his selection of detail or lack of detail, he recreated the lives of the inhabitants. Whether graphic details were described or abstract statements were used to accomplish that, the poet was able to create a mood that was commensurate with the overall purpose in developing his theme. Benet chose, for his point of view, one of the occupants of his abandoned house, or in this case, the house which no longer has an existence. For this reason, the narrator is in a position to speak directly to the reader, and the roles are reversed. He tells us about those who came to knock down his old place of residence. He tells us not to waste our time wondering who the occupants were and what they were like. Do not desire to seek who once we were, or where we did, or what, or in whose name. This opening line sets the tone of the entire poem. Benet is no longer looking to create a mood of nostalgia for the loss of things that are gone forever. His narrator sounds like a person who would tell you, hey, bug off, don't waste your time with that kind of nonsense. He tells us that he and his clan have moved off to a new neighborhood. He admonishes us not to try to recreate in our heads what the old place looked like, how the old windows looked when they were lit. The light in the window, the greeting at the door in Lady Gray's poem. Instead, he focuses on the reality of the present, where we might find the blank face of the stone, the hard line of the street, the sound of the boys crying through the night. That's all. Consider how this line contrasts to the line, no light in the window, no greeting at the door, whose sole purpose was to elicit sadness. Benet uses much concrete detail in his poem. He speaks about the abundance of life through words like depict concrete imagery, old newspapers, cork, footprints, dusty floor, shabby shoes, naked heel, telegrams, flowers, polished stair rails, and many more. Yet these have all disappeared from sight now that the urban renewal has rolled into the old neighborhood and dispersed the inhabitants to move elsewhere. Life continues, only now it can be found elsewhere, somewhere or elsewhere. He tells us that we must not annoy others if we're looking for the old addresses. Instead, we're advised to go to a bar somewhere and get a drink and then talk about the good old days, if that's what we were looking for. All right? Forget about the superstitions like touching cold iron, wearing rosemary, or leaving food out to please the ghosts of the past. It's nonsense, man. Those who have died are far beyond our reach and far beyond our attempt to resurrect them. Under virgin rock, their bones lie sunken, stifled like unborn children in the darkness, past light and speech. His final stanza closes with a note of optimism, telling us that a new generation of people, the progeny of the old neighborhood, can be found going about the business of life's hustle and bustle somewhere and elsewhere. In sharp contrast, For City Lovers, which was written in blank verse, that means it's no iambic pentameter, 5 beats per line, and it's not rhyme, and intended to be conversational. Lady Grey's The Old House is written in ballad form, intended to be sung. The poem follows the same order of development as that of the previously discussed poets, and its presentation of subject matter and its content resembles closely that of other works, yet its overall effect is quite different. The reason for its difference can be found in both the poem's form and its diction. Close analysis of this poem will reveal that the poet's choice of details and his voice he has chosen for the narrator can account for this difference. The first word sets the tone of the entire poem, lonely, the house now, in Lady Grey's poem. Almost every line in the poem creates a mood of melancholy. Gone are the old folk, the house stands deserted, the children are scattered, the old folk are gone. The poet focuses on the activities of the children with such concrete details as sailing boats on the burn, playing games on the heather, and makes reference to the light in the window and the traveler's late return of an evening. The narrator tells us the children are now scattered far and wide from the old homestead, and the old folks are gone. In short, the house now stands deserted, and no more to the home shall the children return. So you see the difference between this and the city dweller, okay? Because it's almost like a joke, all right? And it's the voice of the speaker. Do not desire to seek who once were here, a rough voice. Or where we did, or what we did, or whose name we are, those bones are all gone. All right, so that's the difference between that poem. And it's good to see a contrast, something like that.